All right, week 133 of building my own operating system. What is up, everyone? Welcome to the stream. Thanks a lot for popping in. As usual, quick sponsor message from myself before we dive in. Just a quick reminder, I would be very interested to talk to you about your challenges in the world of systems programming so I can better understand how I can be helpful to my audience. And so I just invite you to contact me directly via any of these means. And I'd love to hear about your challenges in the world of systems programming, whether they are technical, career-wise, or something else. Just hit me up. All right. And without further ado, let's get set up. So this never gets old. Week 133, it's the 14th, and realizing my YouTube title is not correct. I will quickly fix that. But while we're getting set up, feel free to say hello in the chat. I'll check it in 1 second. All right. Lane, first one in the chat. Yo, what is up, Lane? Thank you for popping in. I saw you thumbs up the message in the Discord. Yeah, appreciate you for monitoring that, watching out for my announcements. Yeah, I'm not able to stream as usual on Sunday this week because it's summertime and I got some plans for Sunday. So yeah. Yeah, nice. As usual, hit it with the test 0 just to check in, double check in on the chat widget. Seems to be working. All right, so we can start to slide into things. What's up? Shout out to the 10 people in the chat already. Appreciate you. So today, it's basically going to be one of two things, or maybe, well, actually maybe both. And so I have a little bit of a warm-up planned of just something that I noticed in the kernel that has been bothering me. And I'm pretty excited for that. It'll be pretty technical, and we'll get into a bit of the assembly of the context switch. And then hopefully a bit later we can get into the timer interrupt, which is a major milestone. So, yo, what's up, Pamutaf? Is it Sunday? Yes. Check your calendar. It's Sunday for sure. Yeah, Lane says no problem. Done semester, so I can focus more on programming projects. Decide to work on compilers right now rather than compilers and an OS. Smart move. Compiler and an OS sounds pretty ambitious. What's up, dogs? What's up? Yeah. I'm just gonna point out that I've started using this goal feature, which apparently I'm able to do. So the goal is 1 super chat and you'll get posted on the mirror board. If you do a super chat, that's the goal. Ends in 3 hours. All right. So let's maybe do a bit of a recap of where we're at. So we got the kernel, and for the longest time, we've been running, we've been working on these integration tests. And they're working. Yo, what's up, JS? Hello. Are you early? You are exactly on time. Termu OS in the house. What is up, Termu? Why C++? Why not Rust? Awesome question. Straight out of the gate. Why Rust? Why not assembly? Straight out of the gate with the classic Rust question. We'll see. if the bot is able to answer it. I get that question quite a bit. Hopefully that helps. I did not make a bootloader. Nope, I'm using Limine bootloader. Yep, okay, let's get the, okay. Dang. Lane with the super chat. Lane with the super chat. Goal achieved in approximately 45 seconds. Yo, shout out Lane. Appreciate you, bro. All right, well, that's going straight up here. I appreciate that a lot. And then we can get into our roadmap of the day. So, warm up. The warm up of the day is going to be passing a secondary context pointer to tasks. And hopefully that will make way for like the real main task of the day, which is timer interrupt. Also, yo, Afnan, what is up? The test one. Lane the GOAT, for sure, for sure. Big shout out to Lane, for sure. Can we get the, trying to get my okay, my visual effects seem to be disabled today. Dang, wait, you're telling me this doesn't work anymore? Dang, okay, so that's disappointing. I think I'm using a different camera today, so maybe that's it. Okay, and so the main, so we'll get our little progress bar. None of these things are done. Yeah, it'll be super cool to get a start on the timer interrupt. But first off, we will just, yeah. Let's do a bit of a warm up. Okay, but yeah, just to recap, so for the longest time we've been working on these integration tests. They're looking great. We can run the whole test suite of integration tests. We can also run an individual test. It's not completely finalized, like exactly how this is going to work, but I can copy I can run a specific test like this. I can pass it to this script, which dynamically generates a kernel image with the correct command line argument and then executes the kernel. So, yeah. C++ gets out of my way, which is a pretty true statement. Yeah, that's also a part of it. I mean, I think it's possible that Rust can be coded in a similar way if you use a lot of unsafe Rust, but you will need to kind of work against the type system and just work against the language to do it in a bit of more of this kind of free form experimental way. And C++ just really is kind of nice for that. So that's also another reason. The obvious downside is that you don't get any of the memory safety guarantees that Rust gives you, which can be a downside, but for right now, for where I'm at, C++ feels really nice for what I'm doing. So I'm just gonna keep using it. We'll try not to miss any streams now that I'm subbed. Oh, appreciate it, dude. Thank you. Oh, it's for gaming, and the process will be under 30. Maybe. What's up, Tama Georgie? What's up? Rust is hell. NSG in the house. Crazy chat popping off. Yeah, I don't know. I'm doing this on Friday because I have some plans on Sunday, but it seems like a lot of people are more available on Fridays, actually. It seems like Friday, when I do it, a lot more people join, actually. So I might even consider switching over to Fridays, potentially. Maybe just let me know in the chat if that would work for you, or like Yeah, it seems like a lot of people in the chat. I guess obviously the chat's biased because everyone's here. So everyone's going to say, yeah, obviously it works for me. So maybe it's not the best experiment, but yeah, I might consider it. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to start with the warm-up, of the day, and to demonstrate, to motivate the reasoning behind the warm-up, I'm going to clear out all my tabs and show you a couple kind of ugly points in the kernel. And specifically with respect to these integration tests. And so let's pop open the integration test, and let's open the integration test runner code, which for some reason is in the header file. No. Okay. Run snitch test. This is what I'm talking about. It's called snitchtests.cpp. So, mouse. So there's two ugly points I want to call out. Sub.js, I'm Friday's Event, cool. I'm personally on Mac right now. Wouldn't even know where to start this impressive task. I mean, compared to a lot of other people in the chat, like NSG, I am not really that far along. But I mean, it's just a journey, step by step. I mean, I've been doing this for years, so a couple of years. So, do I have security? Nope, no security at all. That's sort of a particular point. Okay, here's the ugly point. The 2 points of ugliness I'm going to point out are here: this G test filter variable, and then also up here the G child task ran. These are global variables, and I have a bit of a personal vendetta against global variables, and I try to eliminate them at yeah, if I can. And so far the global variable was the best solution for this unit test. So I'm using the global variable thing in two places. One is for this integration test, and then another is as part of the test runner framework. And they are both instances of the same problem. So here, the idea is, I don't know why I'm getting these squiggly lines all of a sudden. Does this fix it? Yes, that fixes it. Yeah, the way this integration test, it's in the title. Yeah, we're doing C++. Yeah, the way this integration test works is the idea is we're testing this API called task wait for exit, which allows the task to wait for another task to run and then exit, like the name would suggest. And the way it works is the test creates a child task called the no-op child task, which basically just exits, and then the idea is the caller should be able to then, after it returns, it needs some way to actually observe that the child task ran. So it needs some kind of like sentinel or like just way to observe this. And the way I've chosen to do it, which is the simplest way, is there's just a global variable that the child task sets, which is then observed by this kind of parent task. And it kind of works, but the problem is that it requires a global variable, because there's no other way, there's no real other way that we can cause some kind of observable state to be set here in the child task, because all we really have access to is the kernel object. So the other option would be to add some kind of weird Boolean inside the actual kernel, which then this task can observe. But that's a really messy solution, and it pollutes the production kernel struct with this random Boolean for this one specific integration test. So really, that's even a worse solution than having a global variable in this anonymous namespace, which at least hides it from external linkage, and so it only has it. So it's a bit better than a real global variable because this has at least internal linkage, and so other translation units can't see it. But it's still not a great solution. And so what I'm imagining here is really a cool solution would be something like this, where a kernel, a task would be able to take a void context pointer, which is separate from this other context that it already gets. And so it's going to take a kind of secondary, maybe another name, sort of like a local context, and that would be an appropriate place to pass, for it to like kind of alter a Boolean. And I guess a basic way it could work, I mean, in the most, in the actual most basic way, I'm just gonna make a bool child task ran was false, and rather than having this global here, it's going to be local variables, and then somehow I am not completely sure how this will work, but we can pass a pointer into the task as some context, and we can decide how we want to do it. Like a simple way would just be like something like, the AI is kind of predicting this already. I don't know if we can static cast. I would have kind of guessed we would need to reinterpret casted, but we basically just cast the context pointer to a pointer to a Boolean, and then set that to be true. And then that would allow this whole thing to work without a global variable. I think, Is it, okay, we'll check the chat real quick. Don't understand anything, to be honest. Don't stress out too much about that. It's somewhat advanced stuff that we're talking about. So, but stick around. Is it recorded? The stream is live, but the streams get recorded on and posted onto my YouTube channel later. So they get archived. So this is the basic idea behind this, and that is only one case. There's also this other case, and it's exactly the same problem. And so basically, I have this kernel task called the snitch runner task, which is where it sort of drives the running the integration tests when the kernel is in test mode. And it has a similar problem where it has some context it needs. Like in this case, it's something called the test filter, which is basically just a string. It's like when we go to run a integration test, it's sort of like this string we pass, and so we just need to pass in a string. So this kernel task just needs to have access to that, but again, there's no real way to pass pass any kind of input into a kernel task exactly. And so it's the exact same problem. The only two ways to solve this are either one, use a global variable, or to put it in the kernel. And like we said, like putting it in the kernel is just completely unacceptable. And so the global variable happens to be the main way to do this, the main best way, but this would likewise, this would also be solved with a context pointer. And I'll just try to keep the things snoozed a little bit. So in this case, I guess we could assert the context, and then I don't know if it's I would imagine it's a reinterpret. Wow. Reinterpret cast. But we would reinterpret this into, I guess, a stood string view. Okay, this is a bit odd. Something like this. And so then therefore we would have this test filter that's effectively kind of passed in into the kernel, and we just need to find some way to like actually pass it in and kind of massage it into the APIs. So yeah, let me check the chat. I see the chat is popping off a little bit. Let's go. What's up? Let's go. Where's your water bottle, bro? I think you're talking to someone else. How can you be this consistent? That's, I mean, this just feels important to me, feels fun, and I've just gotten really into a strong habit, and I just have a lot of fun with it. And so it feels worthwhile, very worthwhile to stream and work on this OS. And it just feels like something that I should do. And so that's why I do it. Solve LeetCode too? Nope, I don't do LeetCode. This is doing this in 16, 32, or 64. This is 64-bit. Haven't seen an address yet. How long is it gonna take? A while, probably a long time. OSs are pretty big. What's up, Rudy? Nice to see you. Text chat isn't something that takes 10 minutes. Yeah, good day. Yeah, I mean, even in the best case, an OS is something that's pretty big, and I only work on it for like 2 hours a week while I stream, and so definitely impacts how fast I can go. Digitalize, what is up, dude? What's up, Aiden? Gonna open source this? Maybe at some point. Yeah, it's not really a big priority for me, but definitely could happen at some point. Yeah. Just gonna drop some emojis in the chat real quick. It's a Black Sea. Okay, so let's keep it moving a little bit. So basically just trying to motivate a bit of the problem. It's sort of like, I would really like to be able to not use global variables and be able to pass some kind of argument into a kernel task. So this is a somewhat major refactoring, at least, or it will involve some fairly critical components of how we call tasks, including some assembly. So this would, yeah, let's get into it. This is pretty exciting. So as usual, I just need to think of a good kind of way to ease into this. Because yeah, it's a fairly, it's a somewhat medium refactor. There's a lot of tasks already out there that don't take a kernel pointer. And so there's just a bunch of questions about how to do this. So let's just make, right. And so there's a lot of API questions. It's gonna affect the create task API. It's gonna affect the run API of the kernel, because the idea is to pass in some data into for a task. There's also the question of, is the local context optional, maybe? Because maybe a lot of kernel tasks don't really need a local context like that. So yeah, I think the easiest way to start is to not consider this thing. And so we're just gonna make the local context argument mandatory for everything, rather than get really fancy with it for now. So let's just think about that. And so yeah. Okay, so the idea so there's already some precedent for this, so let's kind of get into things a little bit more. So let's talk about this. So here we are in create task, and already we need, actually before I even get started, I'm going to clean up my my working tree a little bit. So just add some whips. Bummer. Sort of mixing up my changes here. So I will this, but then I will skip a few of these changes. Okay, so this was the stuff I just did for prototyping, and the rest of this stuff was some legitimate refactoring. Okay, I'm gonna make a whip, clean up tests. So now we're kind of left with, I don't really know, this is like some random dev tools. Comments? I kind of forget what that was about. So now we're over here. Cool. And we've kind of isolated these whip changes. Somehow we got this memory header in there. Okay, don't need that. Okay, cool. So now we're in a relatively okay state to do some work. Check the chat. Yo. What do you do in the halt forever function? Not worth it if the yeah, it's kind of like a panic thing. Just to stop and just spin forever in certain cases when there's nothing else to do. Yeah, that's a pretty common pattern. I forget exactly where you were seeing that alt. But yeah, we do that fairly often for the kernel. Why is the global variable a problem? What's up, Eldorado? I mean, there's a lot of literature around this, but I mean, there's a lot of reasons why global variables are discouraged in software engineering. They make it difficult to reason about a program first and foremost. Yeah, there's a lot of other reasons, but in general, I prefer to not have global variables. What's up, Mukul? No, feel free to keep asking. I need to switch between locking in and checking on the chat. What's up, Walmart? Yes, thank you. Failing to LLMs anyway. How do you make to do tasks? Yeah, we'll get into that. Yep. All right. So let's get so one change we need to already make is what's confusing is there's already the idea of a context, and that is currently used to pass in the kernel reference. And what I'm proposing to do is add a kind of another context. We've reached the first break of the day. Feel free to join me for a 20-second stand up and stretch. Okay. So the first thing is this thing needs to be kind of renamed because this is now kind of confusing. So I'm going to call this the P global context. Yeah. And then we're going to have P local context null pointer. So now this is getting kind of interesting. Now we have these two, arguments, the global context and the local context. It's probably worth some explanation in the comment around what that is. Text is similar. Yeah. Also, this is commonly used to pass the kernel reference for local context for the task. Okay. So now we have this local context, and yeah, this is where it gets good. So now, the way this works in general is we're pre-populating the registers of the task, and this is according to the ABI, and so RDI is the first argument. And just to double check, RDI, RSI, I believe, 6, 4, 5 ABI. RDI, RSI, yeah. And so if we're going to need to pass a pointer into RSI, And it's going to be kind of similar, I think. It's going to be basically sort of like this. If we have a local, actually, I think it might just be it. We're just going to simply pass the local context into RSI. And it will get defaulted to null pointer, and that's okay. And this slightly might actually be it, actually. So now, oh shit, wow. Is the stream still up? Whoa, my YouTube window just crashed. Wow, we still live? My chat crashed. All right, we're still here. Holy crap. Why did, damn, what's going on here? People, what's going on in the chat? Please be civil to each other. Look, I don't know why, yeah. Dang. Subsami. Yeah, people, be chill. Be chill. What's up, bleh? Moderation activity. What's community moderation? All right, yeah. I don't know what's going on, guys, but just chill out a little bit. We're all here to be friends. All here to learn stuff. Yeah. No hate, no stress. All right. So Blake off work, join tech lives. The last thing we want to do, but your lives are calming. Might stay around a while for sure. I mean, yeah, you know, the vibes here are pretty chill. Have you embedded any small programming language like into it, like Lua, Lisp, or something else? No, I haven't, but I've always wanted to do that. I've always wanted to embed a small scripting engine into something. I just have never done that. What's up, Insane? What's up, Badri? All right, people go insane. Let's be nice. Let's be nice. Okay. So yeah, so as I was kind of getting into, actually, this change might be a bit simpler than it seems. And so here's our diff so far. Pretty much we've just, can I? No, can't do that. Yeah, I've pretty much, all I did was add this second thing. And now that's going to allow a caller of create task to pass some local context. So let's give this a try, and let me see the easiest way to do this. So first of all, I need to kind of reason through the impact this is going to have, because yeah, it's not completely obvious to me yet. So basically there's two cases, and so let's try to think about what's going to happen to all of the existing kernel tasks that exist on the system that that don't take a this pointer here. And so with this one change we've done, we've started just to blanketly like possibly pass in another pointer here. And I think actually it is not really going to be harmful. Yeah, let's actually, yeah, we can do a test in 1 second, but basically just the idea is this function doesn't take any other parameters, and or basically if this function gets called with this additional context, also just thinking about how now the API gets a little bit interesting. Like, what if we want to only pass the local context and not the global context? Yeah. I'm going to slightly change something. So I'm just going to reorder these two commits, or these two arguments. So we're going to pass the local context first, and the global context after. So now let's audit all the callers. And so right. So kernel run is one function that calls it, and it doesn't pass anything. So anything you pass into this task list will simply get neither of the context pointers. Over here, now we're in some tests. So yeah, I think it actually should work, because now the tasks can kind of opt in a little bit to getting an additional context. And so I think we can just give it a try. Like, we might even just be able to run this. I think the one thing I need to watch out for, though, and this is also a bit of a downside of default arguments, is the idle task. But wait a sec, actually, the idle task is not created with the create task API. So we actually don't need to worry about that. Okay, so I think this is actually a surprisingly small amount of code. So we now can pass the local context to the create task API. And let's just, I'm going to try this in the most basic way possible first. I'm going to stash these stash snitch runner local context change. I'm going to stash this change, and so now we're in a place where all we have done is we're running with this new set of changes for the no op child task. And here we are, we're making use of this new API right here. We're passing in a pointer into create task, which will be passed as the p local context. And the p local context gets passed into RSI. And RSI will be the second argument here. So I'm just going to compile the kernel. I think it could even work. And so now let's take a look at the assembly just to really take a look. And so now we have this function that takes 2 arguments, and we should see RDI and RSI here, and we see that right here. And so RDI and RSI. So RSI is stored onto the stack at offset hex 10. So given this name variable 18, goes into racks. Stored onto the stack again, reloaded from the stack once more. And then a 1 is written into that pointer. So it's used as a pointer and a 1 is written into. So that looks completely right, actually. And so we should just be able to try to run this task wait for exit test and see that it works. Let's just try that. And it passed. Just to make sure, let's comment out this line, and the test should fail. Test failed. Perfect. So this is actually looking pretty good. Yeah, this is looking pretty good. If we want to be even crazier with it, we could just directly declare this as a bool. And the child task run. And we can just do it this way. I think this will work also. This should pass. So that passed. So that's actually very cool. So now, this is what our test is looking like. Yeah. So now we've gotten rid of all of the global variables, and we just have this argument that a task can take. Maybe it's a little bit sketchy to declare it like a bool pointer instead of a void star with the cast. Maybe that's a little bit too cute to do it this way. So yeah, I think that's a little bit too cute for my taste. I think, yeah, I prefer to revert that part actually. There we go. And so I think I like it to be a bit more explicit. Otherwise, it sort of makes it look like this is a function that takes a kernel and a bool star, which it kind of is, but there's no caller that really looks like this. So this makes it very clear that this is a task. You can tell by the function signature, and then we just do this, and we can, I like the idea of asserting this, and then we can even make it a reference if we want. Oops. Something like this. Maybe that's a bit also too magical. Maybe the pointer is kind of clear about that. So yeah. Okay, let's check out. Tests should still pass. And I think the cool part about this is that none of the existing clients should be affected. Yeah, all of the existing tasks that exist that just don't take a second argument, they're just going to simply ignore this RSI null pointer that's set to 0 when they're called, and they're just going to collaborate as usual. So that's actually pretty nice. And so there is no breakage from this change actually. Everything still works, and then we can opt in certain callers. Yeah, we can opt in certain callers if we want them to receive the local context. All right, let me check in on the chat. Are we chill over here? Why don't you use Visual Studio? It's better for C++. I don't know. I just sort of like VS Code. I find VS Code really nice. Visual Studio, well, first of all, I'm on a Mac. Second of all, I've always heard Visual Studio is a bit heavyweight. Two-space indentation is killing me. This goes more light. File system. Of course, extra steps to set up a project. What's up, Yurnar? How did you learn about building an OS? Pretty much by streaming and by doing some online coursework from some free OS online coursework. That's how I did it. What's up, Sammy? You guys have an active group for discussing O stuff? Yeah, we have a Discord server. Yeah, feel free to pop in, join us. Like Asian-related American. Okay, we've got heavy debate about Visual Studio. Wait till Mark's. That's right. No one's right, dude. It's just about what you prefer. So, yeah. Yeah, I think Bleh is right. My two cents, who cares what code editor you use? At the end of the day, the code should run. Yeah, use whatever you want to use. We can debate if some things have better features or not, but yeah, just use whatever you want to use. Zed. I've not tried Zed. I've heard good things about Zed though. Yeah. All right, JS. Let's not have. This is a bit much. Let's be a bit more chill about that. No need to force people to think a certain way. It's Vim. Shout out to the Vim crew, Vim community. What's up, Super Funicular? I'm Digi Nomad. Yo, what up? Shout out to Digi Nomad. How do you decide whether to refactor or move on to the next problem? It's a good question. I think. I think I have a certain standard that I want to uphold for my code, and so I will refactor until it meets some kind of subjective standard for myself. And that's kind of what we're currently doing now. So it's not really like a very objective thing, but it's more of a feeling of how I want the code to look and code to be. Hell yeah. We're using the editor called ChatGPT for sure. What's up, Larbez? Hello, sir. Your content is amazing. Just tell us, how did you start C++ and what resources and how to become proficient in systems programming? So shout out Hello Code. What's up? Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you. I started doing C++. I did it a bit in university and learned some very old school C++. I just got some basics there. I did some personal projects with it. I wrote an LLVM. A long time ago, I wrote this LLVM. What's it called? Like a pass, like a analysis pass in C++. So I did a bit of personal. It's just an LLVM pass. Yeah. So I did a bit of personal work in C++ for fun a long time ago. This is super bad code. I'm not even going to show it. And then I had some job opportunities where I had a bit of opportunity to learn it in a bit of a professional setting. Then I eventually got a job doing it professionally. I would say, yeah, you just gotta. It's a long road, but just focus on getting more comfortable with C, systems, assembly. I think security is a great entry point. Learn how to write some exploits. Learn how to do some reverse engineering. All right. Sup, it's RN Val. Okay. So that was actually a bit easier than I thought. And so this was a pretty nice, the repo name is so sus. Yeah. Yeah, you can read the description. There's a reason why it was called that. Yeah. Okay, so now we can, apply. We can even pop this entry. So now we can go ahead and apply that same thing over here, but actually on a different level. And so first I will just, I'll do a commit. Yeah. Tests allows us to remove the global variable. Okay, so now let's talk about this. All right. Yeah, so this was sort of like level 1. This was the most basic version of using this new feature where we can now pass a local context into a task. And this is a little bit more difficult because we're not calling the create task API directly over here. We're calling the kernel run API, which is a bit different. And so this, yeah. The idea here is to have a convenient way to pass a list of tasks to the kernel. And that's how we're using it here. We're using it to kick off the test runner. But now we also want to pass this additional argument. And so it's sort of just like an API question of how exactly do you want to expose this. Right now this API is super clean, and it's not really used that often. I mean, it's used in pretty much just 2 places, I think. Okay, no, a couple more. In the main of the real kernel, and then also this integration tests. I think, so my intuition is that it's nice to preserve a really clean and convenient API, and so I think I would rather add an overload for this kind of different case. And in this case, I think we want to have some kind of structure here instead. And so instead of like just a function pointer, it's some kind of like a task info or something like this. And exactly, the AI knows it's just a pack of 2 things, and we have an overload where it's a initializer list of task infos. No, that's not, yeah, we want that here. And then all we do is initial task infos. All right, time for another 20-second break. Feel free to join me for a quick stretch. What's up, Monkaling? Hello, hello. Planning to add a GUI? Not anytime soon. Yeah, GUI is. I think GUI is not really like a GUI is the least interesting part of a custom OS. I think there's no reason to write a custom kernel if you're just going to do some GUI programming. So I'm not really interested in it. Yeah. Is it going to be 64-bit DOS? It's 64-bit. Did you write your own operating system playlist available on YouTube? Not sure. You mean did I watch this playlist? Because the answer is no. I didn't watch a full playlist about writing my own operating system. Yeah, please be a bit patient with me. I'm trying to also balance just working here. But yeah, thanks Bleh for just giving a bit of context. Tell what book or tutorial you followed when you started? What is going on in the chat today? Was everyone so people be worked up? That's why I think it's the Friday vibe. I think people are more worked up on Friday, and then the Sunday is like somehow a bit more of a chill, even more chill vibe. Ayush, yeah. So, this MIT course is what I followed, and that's what I streamed for like over a year. Pretty much, I would say that's how I learned a lot of what I know about this, is just from doing that course and streaming it. Yeah. What's up, Tech with Milud? What resource would you get to get out of the intermediate level? You mean out of intermediate and into advanced? That's a good question. Yeah. So it depends on what you really mean, because I mean, there's so much to low-level programming. But I mean, I think really getting into kernel development is a great way to make that step. And that's partially what I'm trying to do for myself is level up even a level out of intermediate and into more advanced. And so I think if you're already at immediate, then going, writing your own OS is a great step. You could also go into security. I mean, I really think writing exploits is such a great way to level up as a systems programmer and as a low-level programmer. So that, as far as courses, I mean, yeah, you need to start looking for some courses. But again, this MIT course is quite good for this OS stuff. Yeah, we can feel free to join the Discord. We can talk about that more. Larbez asks, why C++ not C? Why not C for the kernel and Rust for core components? I just know C++ the best. That's why. That's by far the language I know the best, and it's totally suitable for this use case. That's also, yeah. I mean, eventually I will make the OS. Well, no promises, but I'm thinking about it. I don't know how soon it will be, but yeah. CS50 is good for beginners. Yeah, I mean, for if you're like a real beginner like that, yeah, take a class, I think, and also work on some projects. Like, find a cool project, and you can do so much with Python. Like, build a website, build some tools for yourself. Just, yeah, whatever triggers your interest. Yeah, do some graphic stuff, make a game. Yeah, just enough to get you moving. Yeah. What's up, Brew? I've been coding for a long time. Probably like, I don't know. Probably something like 15 years or something like that. 14 or 15. No, I'm not a professor. What's up, NPC? I'm not a professor. How do you know what feature you're doing next? I just sort of have a list. I have like a roadmap. Yeah. All right. Thank you for joining, my friend. Thank you for popping in. I'll catch you next time. Have a great Friday. Yeah, I just have this roadmap of OS features that are personally interesting to me, and it's just around core kernel infrastructure, core kernel components. And I just work down this list, and it takes me a while because I go very slowly. I only have 2 hours a week. Okay, so back to this. And so we have the initial task, infos, and task info. I get the reference. I get even the const reference, and then we get the p right. And now this looks like this. So now we have this API where we can do a bit more customization. Customization of the kind of construction of the kernel, if that is interesting or needed. And we can use it. So now let's use it. And so we're going to call, and it's just going to look like this. And the AI already kind of even knows how it's going to look. So maybe we don't need that. Maybe we want this. So now here's how the API looks. We call run, we pass an initializer list with a single element, which is a task info, which has 2 pointers, the pointer to the task, and then also to the local context. And in this case, it's not going to be null pointer, it's going to be test filter, but it needs to be a pointer. And that's sort of the idea, I guess. And so we filter. In this case, I see. What we're doing here is we're just converting it from a frig string view into a stud string view. Frig is only used because it the data source kind of came from the frig argument parsing. Right, and so we have the test filter. Maybe there's a better name for that. And then that allows us to do this thing over here, right? We got the p local context. We're going to assert, I guess it doesn't really matter where, probably higher up is better. We're going to assert on it. We're going to, that's the real question. Can I static cast this? Is that a thing? We're going to static cast it to a string view pointer, which is frankly like a bit odd, but okay. And then now we get our test filter. And now for all these places, which is pretty much right here. Yeah. We can replace it with test filter. And in the same way, we have also removed the need for this global variable. There's no more gtest filter global variable. Let's take this out for a spin. So that builds, and I think this should work. If we're able to just run this, then I think things are working. Yeah, the 3 tests run. It could be fun to even debug this. I think I would like to do that just to really confirm this. And so what I'm going to do is I will run the test in debug mode, and I'm going to break on snitch. Dang, what's the function called? Snitch runner task, I guess. Yeah. Why? Okay, the tab complete didn't work super great there, but so now I'm at a breakpoint. Breakpoints in the snitch runner task, and let's just check it out. We can see, yeah, we're pretty much just in a fresh stack. I'm gonna quickly ask the AI question. How, in LB, how to reset the source list L command? It keeps progressing down the source. Thinking with high effort. I see. So I need to pass. Okay, but anyway, we're here, and we can see that we have a p local context, and check it out. So now we have our test filter, which has been passed into the task, and it's called task wait for exit. So that was actually a lot easier than I thought. It took a lot less assembly coding actually than I thought to accomplish this, which is great news. We were able to stay entirely in C++, which was great. And we just needed to fiddle around with like that little RSI thing to make this work. So Yeah, so the only little tricky thing about using the local context is we need to make sure that this we need to make sure that this memory stays alive, actually, which is which I hadn't deeply thought about that, actually. So this is a variable on the stack. And then we can just dive into the gkernel.run. And the question is, yeah, like what happens to this memory? What happens to the stack memory? It's an interesting question because the question is like, what stack are we even on at this point in execution? This is called from here. We're basically on the boot stack at this point. We're just on, yeah, we're like on the Limine boot stack. And in general, that memory is not touched, so it stays intact. It is a little bit sketchy to have a pointer off to it like that. But for these use cases, it works all right. Yeah. All right, let me check the chat. Okay. Online C++, I know a bit of C. Been coding since 1 year. How do I do it? Just work on some projects. Just work on like some simple projects. I always recommend implementing a shell as a really just solid first project, which shells are very interesting. They are harder than they look. They have quite a bit of complexity if you want to make a really good shell. And they involve string parsing, they involve system calls, they involve memory allocation if you want. So I always recommend working on a shell. Yeah. True, C++ is so powerful. That's true, yeah. Also dangerous, but very powerful. Will your OS be called MarkOS? Now that's a good question. Who knows? OS has no name right now, and yeah, it's an open question what the name will be. How many more weeks until it's done? I mean, that is such an interesting question. How could I possibly answer that question? Yeah, it's hard to predict. Like software is infamously hard to predict how long it takes. And I'm doing software development in such a strange way with only 2 hours a week and also doing it all live streamed and also not really even having a clear idea of what done means for me. So it's really hard to say, but I think there'll be a nice milestone within the next year or so, maybe in the next 6 months or a year. Yeah. I mean, we are approaching a milestone pretty soon with the timer interrupt and preemptive multitasking, but it will be some time before that's actually solid. Kinix still confused on making the unit testing, especially I don't know how do you do that. Good question. Yeah, I can get more into that. Is my OS in QEMU or VMware? So Pandy, you have a job? Yes. Yeah, I'm employed as a software engineer I work in the music technology industry. I don't do OS development in my day job, but I do C++ programming. Okay. Subassembly cube. What is the assert function actually doing? Good question. Assert function, it depends on the context that assert is in, but assert in the kernel just triggers an infinite loop. Yeah, it just triggers an infinite halt loop, which is sort of what we were talking about earlier. But in the unit tests, the assert triggers, I believe it's an exception. Let's double check. It's been a while since I've worked on that code. Yeah, in the unit tests, the assert triggers a C++ exception. Yeah, we can talk more about testing. Yeah. So Chirag, what stage are you at currently? I would say I'm in the early stages, but I have a basic scheduler. I have the basic notion of kernel tasks. I have a basic scheduler API available to kernel tasks for yielding, for exiting, for creating new tasks, and the start of some very basic wait primitives for sleeping, for a number of CPU cycles, and also for waiting for another task to exit. And I have an incredible amount of side infrastructure for testing, for unit tests and for integration tests. Yep. What's up, Autek? What's up, FurDeusX? Can you run it now? Yeah, there's not much to see, but I can definitely run it in a sec. There's almost nothing to see. Yeah, like I said earlier with C++, any advice? I think, yeah, I'll go with a approach with a few aspects to it. So one is you need to be doing projects, and you need to be just like writing code with C++. And like I said before, a shell is a pretty solid project, but really whatever piques your interest. If you want to do game programming, do game programming. If you want to write a plugin for something in C++, do that. If there's some library in C++ that sounds really cool to you, use that. But then also, there's an incredible amount of good content on CPPCon for the C++ conference, on YouTube. And so I'll also be watching that. Then I think I would also recommend to read some C++ code bases, because that will give you a much better sense of how professionals use it and people that are really experienced use it, because there's a lot of ways to do it wrong. Yeah. Game, something graphic on the when you're done. Maybe. I mean, the graphics, like I said earlier, graphics are kind of like the least important part for me. So it's unclear if or when we'll get to that. I'm focusing really on the core kernel components, and a lot of the core kernel components are not visual, kind of by nature. So, yeah. Is the user space going to be more Windows-like or Unix-like? That's a good question. I'm actually not even planning on really having a user space for the short term, and maybe even for the long term. Yeah, user space adds complexity in ways that I'm not really interested in dealing with. And like I said, I'm focused on the core kernel infrastructure anyway. Yep. What do you do your printing function? I use QEMU's like debug IO port for that. At error level, for your printing function to make it better. Solid suggestion. Is cybersecurity a good career? I would say so, yeah. Cybersecurity is very important, and it will really level you up technically if you choose the right part of cybersecurity, and that knowledge can be very transferable. So I think so. Yeah, I started my career in cybersecurity, and I think it was a great place to start. So I agree with Autek. What about directories? Are you going to use a Windows approach or Unix one? Good question. I think frankly, I don't really have much experience with Windows, and I find this partition with the letters a bit strange. So for me, I think the Unix style virtual file system is probably what I will implement. Yeah, it's the most familiar to me. Terminal view. Yeah, I'm using Ghosty with LazyGit over here and tmux. So that's my setup for that. GPU support. Multi-threading. Depends on what you mean. I have multiple tasks. I have multiple tasks. So technically I do have sort of a notion of threading. But I don't have parallelism because I don't support multiple processors or multiple cores. And so that already eliminates a certain kind of race conditions. And then furthermore, I don't even have preemptive multitasking yet. And so there are much fewer opportunities for race conditions currently because my OS is so simple. Yeah, GPU support. You can show which files are the core ones. Just click on boot. How does it work? If you're using QEMU, if yes, how do you handle SMP constraint with QEMU when running with TCG? So I'm not using SMP. So for the moment, I'm simplifying it. If you mentioned Mutex, I'm going to get a migraine. Yeah, FairDX. Yeah, it's a fair question. I don't even really know what the kernel does on boot anymore because, like I've been saying, I've been working on core kernel infrastructure for the longest time. But here's the main function of the kernel, and we just print out a bunch of stuff, basically parse some command line arguments, and then in the real execution we jump into this really random kernel task called test0. And if we remove this part, we have this basic test where we yield a few times and then exit. And so I think that's how the kernel is going to look. If we just run the kernel, yeah. It just creates and destroys tasks. It's kind of interesting. Yeah, so what it does is it yields every 5th time in this loop and then creates a new task and then exits. And so it's pretty boring. It's just kind of this demo test task. So that's the current state of what kernel looks like. So not really too much to see quite yet. Time for another 20-second break. Be right back. Yep, using OBS. Yep. Okay. So yeah, let's pop over here. So I'm just gonna delete that. Yeah. Right. So now we have this new way to pass some local context via the run API, and this commit is using that. It's pretty cool. Context. Use it to remove global variable from snitch runner. Okay. I think so. There was a question earlier from Q Unix about tests, and I can answer that if Q still there, if QNX is still here. Otherwise, we can sort of pivot topics a little bit and start exploring what's next on the roadmap. But as far as I'm concerned, we pretty much, the warm-up took most of today's stream, but that's how it goes sometimes, because software, it's difficult to predict how long it will take to develop software, especially when you're streaming it. So that's the snapshot of today's progress so far. The P local context passed this thing in. And in this case, it's not a problem for this thing to be on the stack like this, because the lifetime is guaranteed. And so allocate the memory, pass the pointer into this thing, and then this thing by definition just blocks for the entire lifetime of this thing. And so the lifetime of this task is a superset of the lifetime of the child task, which is accessing the pointer. And so for that reason, it's guaranteed that it's safe to pass the pointer in here and access it from this task. Okay, cool. So warm-up is finished. Took me like an hour and a half. And now theoretically, we could try to maybe prototype a bit of the timer interrupt, or just, yeah, think about that a little bit. Do you use int32 and other standard types or default int? I use both. Yeah, they're for different purposes. Well, maybe, I mean, it's also a bit debatable, I think. But I use both. I personally, int32 is a fairly rarely used type. uint32 or uint64t is much more commonly used. But for simple numbers, I use int. Yeah. Okay. All right. So I have some more time left. Yeah. Let me just check my phone real quick. All right. So we could try to make a first step in the direction of a timer interrupt. That is what I'm thinking. Yeah. We'll see. Maybe it's not even too bad. I think I will definitely need a bit of Claude support for this, though. Let me see. What will be a good starting point? First, I just want to confirm a question about the approach. And so x86-64 kernel, I'm about to add a timer interrupt. Is the LAPIC a good, reasonable way to start with this? What is it documented in the Intel manual, or what other documentation? Yes, the local APIC is a very reasonable place to start. In some ways, it's the natural choice for a modern 64-bit kernel. Let me break down the options and the documentation. Okay, so your realistic choices are the LAPIC timer per CPU built into the local APIC, simple register interface, fires an interrupt on the vector you choose. This is where nearly all modern kernels land. PIT, the legacy programmable interval timer, but it's a single shared legacy device being phased out of real hardware. HPET, more complex. ACPI, table parsing, overkill. So it counts at the CPU bus frequency, which you don't know a priori. So to get a known tick rate, you typically need to calibrate it. Interesting. Yeah, I kind of don't care how often it fires exactly, so I can skip a calibration. Okay, this will be interesting. Okay, the documentation. The Intel Manual Volume 3A is the primary reference. Chapter 11, the APIC. Okay, cool. Okay. The OSDev Wiki, classic. Intel multiprocessor specification. Okay, but rather than vibe coding it, I'm going to try to exercise my brain a little bit. Let's see. So it was saying that apparently we can learn more about this in chapter 11 of the Intel manual, which talks about some stuff here. So it's talking in general about the APIC. Two primary functions. Receives interrupts and handles IPIs. Okay. So this is a lot of text here, and I am mostly concerned with the timer. So let's see if we can learn about that. So here's the part about the local APIC, handling local interrupts. This This is very detailed. I actually don't really understand what a local interrupt is compared to like a normal interrupt, which we were handling elsewhere. So the APIC timer. And then yeah, we don't really care about this. So handling local interrupts versus handling interrupts. Wow. Yeah, we're deep in the weeds here because there's this whole other section about interrupt and exception handling in chapter 6. And so I don't know what they possibly have more to say about that. Apparently a lot. Yeah, this is quite a lot. Yeah, time to lock in for sure. Okay, spurious interrupts, message seal interrupts. Okay, but yeah, you can dial in on the APIC timer. The local APIC unit contains a 32-bit programmable timer that is available to software to time events or operations. Wow. Until speed step. Processor's bus clock. Value specified in the divided configuration. In periodic mode, the timer is started by writing to the initial count register. Okay, I always like to at least skim the official docs just to know what they look like. But yeah, it's very difficult to actually process this information. It's so much text, it is so dense. Ideally, it would be cool and hardcore to basically write a driver for this directly based off of the manual, but that's pretty wild. So yeah, this is just to get a brief skim though over what it kind of looks like. Yeah. Reach the hard part? Yep, definitely. This is definitely the hard part. Do you use Linux? To be honest, not that often. I'm on a Mac right now, and I use that most of the time. I use Linux sometimes for certain development things, but it's not really my preferred like main daily computer. Okay, so concretely, there's a couple ways I can go forward. So we got this information here. It was also saying to look at the OSDev wiki. One other thing I can do is I can go to the classic JOS repo. Which I used to do, yeah, which is the original OS I was I was hacking on for quite some time. And this already has LAPIC support in a bunch of places, and I am kind of inclined to copy how it does things for now. So yeah, for anyone watching, this is the OS from the MIT course that I was streaming for a long time. And yeah, I think I might, yeah, use this as inspiration, or even just sort of like rip some of the code straight out of this. Let's take a little bit of a brief tour around here. And so the way this works is during the boot up of this kernel, it does a bunch of stuff. And at some point, it calls LAPIC init. So that's sort of an initial entry point. And that is where it does some basic setup. And interesting. Oh, wow. The LAPIC adder gets initialized in mpconfig.c. LAPIC adder. Wow. So it's sort of like step by step. So first, in this OS, it does some multiprocessor config stuff in order to get the address, the physical address of the LAPIC, right? This is a phys_adder t. So this is the physical address of the LAPIC. Which apparently you can get somehow this thing. Okay. So yeah, so I need to first, but anyways, that is apparently the first step, is you need to locate the address of the LAPIC in physical memory. I wonder if somehow Limine bootloader might do something for us in a way that's helpful, like find it automatically, or we can try to find it ourselves. So that's the first step, though. Yeah. Once we have that, we can map it into virtual memory, and then we can start to use it. And it's basically, to use it, you do memory mapped IO accesses in a similar way you might do them to access any other kind of hardware. So that's interesting. So that would be the start. And then, yeah, and apparently there's all this setup you need to do. Yeah. And so we can replicate a lot of this. Yeah, this is deep, deep stuff. Assembly Cube asks, are you doing some embedded systems projects too? Not personally, but at work, I work on an embedded system project. So I get some experience through that, but it's more like embedded Linux. Will you eventually quit at some point if you didn't reach your expectations? Will you never ever quit? Obviously, I'll never quit. Obviously, I'm committed to this for the rest of my existence. So pretty much just locked in. What's up, Manju? Jamming. Thank you for the jewels. You're using Limine bootloader, right? Yep. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, using Limine bootloader. What's up, GTish? Hello. What's up? Hiding for 10 jewels. Got jewels in the chat. What's up, Saitama? One Punch Man. What degree do you have? I have a bachelor's in computer engineering. All right. Yeah, let's just try to YOLO this a little bit and just have fun with it. Yeah, I'm just gonna try to just rip this code out into my own OS. So let's again clear everything out. So what would be I'm just gonna go to kernel.cpp or kernel.hpp even. Oh, even time for a 20-second break. Be right back. Yeah. So I'm just going to, I don't quite know where this will go, but we'll call this local APIC.hpp. Well, yeah, I definitely want to snooze this for a while because this is the part I want to actually have a lot more control over. Yeah, so how is this even going to work? So the biggest question to start off is, well, how do we get the address of the LAPIC? That is a very basic initial question to answer. All right. The pit. Time interrupt sources. So this is sort of a useful page about that. APIC timer. Discovery MP specification table. Interesting. Interesting. Let's learn a bit more about that. So yeah, before we can even think about doing anything with the LAPIC, we need to discover it. So yeah, this is much more readable than the Intel manual. At least it seems like it. Periodic mode, one-shot mode, TOC deadline mode. Okay. Before enabling the local APIC, you should set up the rest of the local APIC. Oh, I just gotta answer this one question. Why not have Claude do it in like 3 days? It could, yeah, I mean, I could do that. I could have Claude code gen like a whole OS, but then I wouldn't understand anything. And so for me, the point of this is to understand how an OS works. And so I wouldn't get any of that if I just Claude generated it. Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot of different reasons to write software. Like if you're writing software because you want the end result of what it can do for you, then yeah, by all means, like vibe code the hell out of it. But if you want to understand how a computer works, there isn't really a substitute for just doing the work. Yeah, true. I also don't want the OS to be slapped. That's right. Yeah. Okay. And it's saying determine the local APIC's physical address via ACPI tables. Yeah. Want to have Claude date your girlfriend? Yo, that's funny. That's super funny. I'm actually usually in the past streams I've been able to like trigger some of these effects, and it's really disappointing me that I can't seem to do that today, or whatever reason. Maybe my webcam is too old. Oh well. Interesting. Okay. So yeah, we're still on this quest to determine the local APIC's address. Wow. So here it's talking about how to do this timer calibration thing. Because apparently you don't actually really know how, like, yeah. For a reason I don't quite understand yet, the APIC needs to be calibrated. That's wild. That's wild. Okay, so what? Wow. Some constants. I'm trying to figure out I'm trying to figure out the very first step though. How do I discover the local APIC? And people are doing that in assembly. I'm trying to not do that. This assumes we've already discovered it. That's crazy. I'm gonna search for Limine APIC. This seems like one of the things that Limine might do for me. Yeah. Maybe let's read a bit more about that. If I search for APIC, yeah, Limine, one of these other useful features is apparently, let's check this out, APIC. We're in the x86-64 machine state on entry. The local APIC, if available, is initialized as follows. It's enabled and software enabled. Okay, let's, I'm actually gonna switch over to my Limine protocol doc. I think this has been updated in the meantime. Oh, I did not. Why was it merging stuff? Okay. Okay. We got our updated docs on the APIC. Base revision 5. Are we in, how do I check which base revision I'm using? Yeah, that's, how do I even, yeah. Where do I find that? Base revision supported. genuine. So it seems like starting from base revision 5, a lot of really cool things happen with the local APIC. How do I see what base revision I'm using? Yeah. Right, this is the exact file I was just looking at. Yeah, I'm going to just quickly ask Claude in parallel. Oh, wow. It's in Limine requests 3. It's been so long since I've worked on this part of the kernel. Ah, wow. Okay, so I'm using this old Limine base revision. Interesting. API revision. So you were still streaming. Dropped by again. Yeah, I'm locked in a little bit. It has been a solid amount. I might end it relatively soon, but yeah, I kind of got into this interesting topic of the local APIC. And it seems like I need to update my Limine version to make use of these new features. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I want to be able to make use of this. It sounds very convenient that they do that for us.
I don't really know what this means. I don't really know what any of this means, and it might even be the case that this is not super helpful, because we still need to somehow discover the physical address of the local APIC. And I still don't really know how to do that. But in any case, it's probably a good idea to update my Limine. So let me just go back and see how we want to do that. So the way I ship Limine is in a submodule, because it involves some binary component. So what? Or no, wait, what? I could have... I could have sworn it was a submodule, but it looks like it isn't. Huh. I have a get modules here for this. Why? Yeah. Very mysterious. I had a submodule there, but it didn't seem to be active, and now what has happened? Have I activated it? Aha, this is looking a bit... So now does the kernel build still? That's the question. Seems like it. Okay, good. So now let's say I wanted to... Oh. Read a while about that. The recent update has risks of boot failures. Dang. Yeah, it's not what I need, but the good news is that no one is really relying heavily on my OS, so it's not a huge problem. Okay, so there's these different... There's so many things going on here. So Limine moved from Codeberg to GitHub, it seems, fairly recently, which is why I'm looking at everything here. Just to double check. This all is archived, so it seems like GitHub is actually the proper place for it. And but yeah, we're looking at the main Limine repo, of course, is where we should be looking. And I guess what I want to learn is just, okay, what version should I be using? I I know I need base revision, at least base revision 5. So if I understand correctly, the version I've been using is like version 9. Which approximately checks out from the point I was doing the initial Limine work, I think. So now if I search for base revision, all right, time for a quick 20-second stretch. Be right back. If I search for base revision 5, there we go. I can see that base revision 5 has been implemented as of 10.8.0. Okay, timer interrupt. So LAPIC. So just to maybe document a bit of the path. So it's like we're kind of going down this rabbit hole right now. Long press to unlock. Where the goal is to get our basic timer interrupt running. To do that, the suggested approach is the LAPIC. And then Limine initializes it, which is one question, but only from base revision 5. And another question is, how do we discover there's some multiprocessor specification thing apparently that talks about how to do this. And so I think I might need to probably get into this anyway, but it seems like it could be a good idea to upgrade my Limine version. Because apparently they're doing a lot of development. And so, yeah, the question is, what version do I want to get? Yeah, sorry, I need to lock in sometimes. What's up, Heisenberg, for some here, bro? How are you so good at this? I think first of all, I don't really think I'm that good. Second of all, I've been doing this every week for a year, 2.5 years. And so that part helps a lot. Why didn't the stream end? Yeah, oh man, did you want it to end? Did you need it to end? Do you think teams might start moving away from GitHub, especially with how frequent the outages have become? What could be the next viable option? That's a good question. I know a lot of people are pretty annoyed with GitHub these days, but I don't really know a great... The only two options I could think of are one being Codeberg and two being GitLab as the main competitors to GitHub. But there's so much momentum around GitHub, I think it would take a lot. Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Usually we go for about 2 hours. It can go for about 3 sometimes if I'm really feeling it. Yeah. Do you stream other things or projects? No, this is it for me. This is like the only thing I do
for my free. I don't really do coding in my free time except for this. Is like the only thing I do. So yeah. Yeah. Okay, let's just yeah, let's reach some kind of stopping point. I think choosing a Limine version to upgrade to and then going with that. That sounds good. So seems like the latest and greatest in Limine World is on the 12.x, but there's no 12.x binary, which is too bad because I rely on the binary releases, which have the pre-compiled like BIOS images or whatever. So let's try this. And so I have actually never tried to do a Limine upgrade before. So this will be an interesting experiment. But yeah, so we seem to be on we're on the 9.x branch. We want to check out to the 11.x binary branch. Okay, so no prod changes on Friday. You know, that's so true. That's so true. We should call it a day. You know, especially no upgrading dependencies on a Friday. Yeah, I think that's probably the worst thing you could ever possibly do. Just why not? Why not just bump our dependency 2 major versions and then sign off for the weekend? Yeah. Okay, so I think it was that easy. So we're ostensibly now checked out onto the 11.x binary release, and that's visible now in the main projects because I do ship it as a submodule. And so I'm just gonna try to compile. And already I broke the build. Limine.h is not found anymore. So now let's classic. So why? Ah, interesting. So what happened? So it seems like the header file is no longer included. On the 9.x branch, we have limine.h is here for us to use, and I was relying on that. And it seems like, how is that? Did it get renamed or something? Is this what it's called now? No. Wow, is there no header shipped anymore? What am I not understanding about this? Maybe I need to build it? Is the header generated? Nope. I'm very confused then. How are you supposed to use this then? If I'm on the 10.x, there's also no header file. Right. Yep. That's what I thought. The header file is right here, right? Can I check out that is this mentioned in the change log somewhere? Header. Breaking changes. This must be it. No longer install the header file on the host. Oh, wow. I think I was kind of, not quite sure what that means, but so much for an easy upgrade, I guess. So the question then is where does one find the header exactly? Is this? No, this is not it. Maybe I will look at the various templates repos. Wait, are they shipping it in the Limine protocol? Oh, and the C header for the Limine boot protocol. Wow. So is this where you're supposed to get this thing these days? Sort of seems like it. I wonder if I can find some more information. Protocol. Yeah, but it seems like they changed things where they no longer yeah, so I think I will need to then add the header in a different way then. Let me see. Okay. Yeah, okay, then I'll just do this a bit more manually. So I will continue to have my submodule point over here. Then I will then need, how do I want to do this? I could have a single folder with two things. I'll just keep it like this. So I'll make dir Limine protocol upstream. And I will pull this. We're on a pretty no, this is on the Codeberg thing. So I need to the protocol, clone the new one on GitHub. Now we're checked out to like a really recent one. And yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now here, and okay, so now we got our header, and we're almost there. Now I'm just going to copy some CMake stuff. So yep, we just need the one CMake file, I think. Yeah, so now Limine header is here. Yep. And in the Limine CMake, we can technically get rid of this thing because it's no longer there. Yep. Need coffee cup. What's up, Andrew? Not Sunday. Doing it a bit on a different day this week. You had a task or processing yet? Yeah, we have some basic tasks. Yeah, nothing too crazy. Okay, so now we're over here and I'm just going to tweak this thing. Yeah, I'm sort of thinking about how it might be nicer just to have all of this in one place, actually, in just a single Limine, rather than two. Kind of a detail, doesn't really matter that much. What I will do is I will copy the hash. Whoa. I will copy the hash and just put that into a commit file here. And now that this thing is pretty much done, I suspect the kernel might be building again. Okay, so that's a bit of progress. We're finding the header, but Limine executable command line request is no longer a symbol, so they must have changed the header. So requests, yeah, typical dependency porting type of stuff. Wow, did they change all of this? First off, let's just search for this. Let me executable command line request ID. So did they put ID? I think I need.
Okay, I'm gonna do it like this. Oh, that's so ugly, but now it finds them. What? Ah, but wait a sec. Do I need to? Limine API revision doesn't, is that even used anymore? Let me find the old one. So if I go back here, if I go back to 9x binary, find the header. So this used to be interpreted, and it was doing all this checking based off of this, and I'm not seeing any of that anymore. So okay, so they must have really changed this in ways that I wasn't aware of. Wait, this is the good one. So I should be able to check out trunk and then look at the change log, because they seem to be API revision. They don't even, okay, there's nothing mentioning the API revision thing. So I feel like they broke things and didn't document it. Chat had some activity. Watch any sports? No. Straight up, not really. Yeah. Where do I C++? How? Yeah, good question. Yeah, I should write this up somewhere. A bunch of people are asking me this. Yeah. Yeah, I think just watch some CTPCon talks, do some projects, read some C++ projects. I'm gonna write up something more official. Yeah, a lot of people are asking me this. Can a person have a degree to get into OS Dev? Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, there's not as many jobs in OS Dev as for like other kinds of stuff, but it's a real job for sure. He just watches birds. Bird watching. Yeah, man, that's the newest hobby, the bird watching. Yeah. So I pirate software. Yeah. Okay, I'm just trying to, man, this ended up being a lot harder than I kind of would have wanted. So, and I've been sort of stubbornly not using the AI for any of this. So I have a lot of questions. Okay, limine.h is delivered differently now. It's not in the binary branch, but in the protocol repo. Newest version of the header changed some IDs and also got rid of the API revision check.
let's just see what the compiler says now. So still missing some symbols, but I think we're almost there. So basically I'm using this thing called start marker. Oops. Which still seems to be there. So what's going on? This thing? What if I don't define this? Anything change? No. I'm using, yeah, what? Limine base vision supported. So so it seems like somehow the header is not making it through. I'm kind of suspicious about that. Okay, I just did a clean rebuild. And did not change anything. Okay. I'm gonna kill the palm tree because we're pretty much maxing out how much time I want to spend here. Okay, why? Almost nothing has changed here. Like, I'm just curious. If I do something like really stupid, like this, that will completely break compilation, right? We're not even going to find the header file at all. So now we are finding the header file, but weirdly, some of its symbols are not unexpected unqualified ID. Use of undeclared identifier. That is so mysterious. How could this possibly be undefined? It's right here. There's no like if defs that would block it. I'm gonna have Claude help. This is a bit too much. Okay. Make target. Why are there these symbol issues? The limit.h is being found, and those defines are there. Some program more code than web dev. Got real chatters. Yeah, I apologize for the boring stream today. I um hmm. Oh, wait. Whoa. The new header expects you to supply the declarator. The macro only gives the initializer. Wow. Okay, interesting. An API change in the Limine header. Man, this header has so many breaking changes. Now they expand only so. I'm just going to say yes, this is way too detailed and not important to spend time on. What a stupid breakage. So it used to have this like symbol macro thing that defined a variable. And now I need to somehow define my own variables for these arrays. That's I would somehow expect to see something in the change log about this. I don't see anything in here. So, yeah. If anyone think that feels quite eventful, oh, appreciate that. I personally feel like I'm just like effing around trying to get my freaking Limine build to work. I think the first part of the stream was pretty cool, and now I'm back in just the hell of like build system hell. Okay, so let's just see what it did. And so we can see that in order to use the newest Limine version, we need to do a bunch of things differently. I think the changes are mostly isolated to my Limine requests file. And now I want, I want to go check out all these example kernels. Is that how they do this now? Like if we go to,
Yeah, look at how they do it now. Apparently, this is the new idiomatic way for some reason. So we're going to adopt that change, and the kernel builds. Okay, so I'm still curious about this Limine API revision thing. That removed? Yo, benzene, what is up? Yeah, we're streaming at a different time of day, streaming at a different day of the week, and I'm about to finish actually, but thanks a lot for popping in. Yeah, active chat, active chat. This is kind of bad, dang. Lua, I want to, okay. Thought the stream was really chill too. It was my first time watching. Well, I'm really glad to have you, Eldorado, and Bleh, and JS, and all these people, all you people here. Glad you're glad that just what I do is at least chill or interesting in any kind of way. But it's fun for me. I've been doing this for a couple of years, and we always make more progress, and it just builds over time. So yeah. Used to watch Coding Jesus' lives, but the dude became toxic. Just a mindless yapper who demeans others and farms views. So I end up glad I end up finding offline mark. Well, I appreciate that, bro. I mean, I have to say I got a little bit turned off by some of the toxicity in some of these other streams I saw too, or some other videos. So yeah, it's not really the vibe I want to bring to my content. So using Lua or Python. I have never done Lua, so I don't really know. I always watch the streams before I sleep, like smallest man's in whole week. Oh, awesome. Appreciate it. That's really cool. All right, let's bring it to an end. Let's bring this to the finish line for today. So, um, ah, there's a transitional macro to opt into the renamed API. Oh, interesting. They really removed some of the old APIs. Okay. So I don't really know, yeah, like what too much more of what we would expect, but basically the kernel builds again, we're running on the latest upgraded Limine bootloader, which in theory allows us to have a fully initialized APIC, and who knows what that actually means. Apparently, so now we're running. Actually, yeah. Do I need to specify base revision 5 somewhere? Yeah, I think it does this here. So we should. So we should be doing something like this, I think. And got too many windows open. Hmm. All right, we're gonna run on base revision 6. Does this compile? Yeah, so it seems like the way you register your base revision also changed.
previously there was this kind of macro thing we would use before including the header. And now you assign to some variable and I think it must specifically be called that this limine underscore base revision thing. Or no, this doesn't exist anymore. Oh wait, no. So yeah, so wait a sec. So no, we need to port this to now 6. Okay, so I see there's a few different parts to this Limine integration. There's like there was this define, and then there's all this configuration inside the C++ file in terms of like these various global variables you create. And this is where really the most of the configuration happens. And apparently this define thing is mostly just to, yeah, it was mostly because they were switching names. They like renamed a few things in the API, but then kept both of them around for compatibility. But then they've since dropped that. And so actually I think I don't do it this way, but volatile UN64T base revision, yeah. And maybe I even get rid of the array length here and just bump this to 6. So that's going to be my guess at how we do that. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at this. This is our this is our contains modified content. But why is it a, wait, well, why is this a submodule? Oh, because I accidentally copied a git. Sorry, wow. I accidentally copied. Yeah, the git repo, the git folder there. Okay, I didn't want to do that. So now here's what our Limine update looks like. We're bumping the submodule with all the binary components, which is what we're doing here. We're moving all the way to the version 11. And as a consequence, we also need to switch to this new method of delivering the header, which I'm doing here. And so that's all going to happen together. And so bump the binary components, add the header in a different place, and then port to the new header. And I'm also curious, do I need to have this 4 here? Or can I just, I don't think I do. I think I can just have it automatically figure that out, and it should still build right. Good. So I'm going to remove these manual indices. Yeah. Chat popping off. Sorry, I'm not going to be able to get to all these messages, but I appreciate you all popping in. Yo, JS being the most active chatter in the stream, probably for sure today. Yeah, 3 hours straight chatting it up. I really apologize. I won't be able to get to all these questions. It's already been 3 hours of streaming, which is quite a bit for me. But that is where we're going to pretty much leave it for today. And so with this commit upgrade Limine to the 11, yeah. Yeah. The header is now delivered in a separate repo, and there were a variety of breaking changes to update to. Okay, but then the idea is theoretically, now that we're on this new Limine version, it could be helpful for the LAPIC. We'll see if that actually plays out in practice, but it's not a bad idea to update dependencies anyway, at least for what I'm doing. So yeah, next time we'll go deeper into this and we'll figure out how to keep working towards getting the timer interrupt working. So yeah, chat, that's pretty much gonna be it for the stream today. Got a bunch of people in the chat. That's awesome. I will just quickly wrap up with, as usual, the sponsor message from myself. So I am trying to figure out how I can be most helpful to my audience of people that are interested in systems programming. And I would like to talk to you about your challenges just to see how I can be most helpful. So I would just invite you to reach out to me directly. And I'll be curious to hear about, whatever you're going through, whether it's technical challenges or career challenges or something else. Just feel free to hit me up and we can go deeper on that. But yeah, pretty much with that, that's going to wrap it up. Bleth, thank you very much for popping in and out. And yeah, Eldorado, appreciate it. Yeah, no stream this Sunday. This Friday stream is a replacement for the Sunday one. So yeah. Oh, bro, Shivang. So for everyone in the chat, Shivang was a very early viewer of my streams 2 years ago. And these days, Shivang is a professional kernel developer. How freaking awesome is that? Thanks. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Yeah, you can add me. Go ahead. All right. I wish you a great weekend, great week. And I'll see you next time. Peace.